Washington. Fox News Channel is America's election headquarters.
A well-known columnist for the Washington Post has just filed a column echoing questions raised last week in the wake of the exclusive reporting by our own Jennifer Griffin. Washington Post columnist David Ignatius writes that the White House owes the American people some answers about the terror attack that killed 4 Americans in Benghazi, and why, and says that they owe those answers before Tuesday's election. Joining me now, Michael Mukasey. He served as United States Attorney General during the George W. Bush administration. He's co-chair of the Romney campaign's Law Enforcement Advisory Group. General Mukasey, welcome back to the program. Great to see you.
Good to be here, Megyn.
So this is interesting to see from David Ignatius saying that they need to answer this and they need to answer it now. A couple of questions, including why we have folks who were there saying that requests for backup were denied by the CIA, which the CIA denies, and saying we also need to ask why the United States didn't send armed drones or other assistance to aid those who were under attack in Benghazi immediately. Your thoughts?
Megyn, we've got an election coming up, and there are 2 things that the American people are entitled to. One is competence, and the other is honesty. And so far, we don't seem to have gotten either one in connection with this horrible event. In the lead up to it, they denied requests for protection. That was testified to before Congress. Instead of adding protection to our embassy and to Libya in general, it was denied, notwithstanding that the British had been attacked, the Red Cross had been attacked. And then in the event itself, there were requests for assistance when people were told to stand down. And the CIA has said specifically that they never told anybody to stand down. Secretary Panetta has said that he gave an order directing the armed forces not to enter the fray, and yet the president has said that, or has claimed that as soon as the White House found out about it, they directed that everything that could be done be done. We saw copies of messages that went to the White House while this was ongoing that made it clear that the consulate was under attack, that it was an organized attack, and yet all we got in the aftermath was this ridiculous cock and bull story about a video having had something to do with it. It was cynical to the point of insanity that even as the President and the Secretary of State stood there in the presence of the bodies of those 4 people, she was talking about that video when everybody knew at the time that it had nothing to do with it.
Today we've got news of this Tunisian man. He was arrested, we knew that, in connection with these attacks on our consulate in Libya. And now we hear that he and another have been detained, or were detained at an airport in Turkey in the days after the attack, and transferred to Tunisian custody, and U.S. interrogators have not been able to interrogate the guy. So we've made arrests, they've been detained, they haven't been interrogated, and it does appear that we are now going to treat this as a law enforcement problem and not necessarily as a terrorist attack, a terrorist problem where we would respond a bit differently. As the former Attorney General, your thoughts on that?
Well, this is a case of people who are blinded by ideology, looking through an ideological lens and seeing a crime where everybody else sees terrorism and a war. We've been told repeatedly that wars are over, and the only people who don't know that are the people who are fighting us. For them, the war is still on. And so we continue to treat this as a law enforcement issue when they treat it as a war.
What kind of a message do you think it sends to those who would like to attack us, the way that this has been handled from soup to nuts?
I think that the message it sends is that it is not at all dangerous to be an enemy of the United States, that if you attack the United States will turn a blind eye and pretend that it hasn't happened, and if it has happened, we'll pretend that it is simply a crime and not a war. That's what's being done here. the lead up to this, the event itself, and the stories afterwards all show a lack of both competence and honesty. And obviously, as a criminal lawyer that in a trial, a defendant has a right not to testify, and the jury can't draw any inference against him. But we don't have a Fifth Amendment in politics. And it's shocking to think that the administration is willing to have the jury, which in this case is the American public, draw all the negative inferences in the world, and yet not speak the truth. You can only imagine what the truth must be like if they're willing to keep silent. The facts are known. The facts are simple. They're known. They're available. The only thing that remains is to disclose them.
Final question. They say the fog of war. They say conflicting information. They say General David Petraeus gave them information, and so did the DNI, the Director of National Intelligence, that they relied on in speaking out to the American people about a video initially. Why shouldn't we believe that and say we've got some intel problems, but not an honesty problem from the administration?
That's nonsense on stilts. There's no evidence whatsoever that the intelligence community gave that kind of information, and there would have been no basis for it. There were cameras outside that consulate. Those cameras showed an attack. There was never a demonstration. There was never anybody saying anything about a video. That was a fabrication from the start.
General Mukasey, thank you for being here. We appreciate your perspective.
Thanks.
All the best, sir.